In today's video, you're going to learn why you should be squatting every single day if you're over the age of 65, and how to squat safely and without pain. If you're new to this channel, I'm Tara. I'm a neurologic physical therapist, and on this channel we talk about anything and everything related to mobility, health, fitness, and mindset, with the end goal of empowering you with as many tools as possible to take ownership of your health and live an overall more active, more mobile, pain-free life. So first, let's just talk about why, if you're over the age of 65, you should be doing some sort of a squat every single day. First and foremost is to be able to get up out of a chair. In my 20 plus years of experience of working with people with mobility limitations, over the age of 65, by far, once you lose the ability to get up out of a chair, it does lead to a lot of other mobility problems on top of that. So squatting will help you to maintain the strength in the muscles that will ensure that you will always be able to get up out of a chair. 2, functional reason is being able to pick stuff up off the floor. 3, functional reason is being able to get out of a car. Now, mind you, these are all reasons why people eventually come to see me, is because their mobility starts to impact their ability to function in everyday life. So these are the things that you never want to not be able to do if you can help it. Along the lines of picking something up off the floor would be picking yourself up off the floor if you do happen to involuntarily end up down on the floor, or voluntarily, which I always recommend that people do on a pretty regular basis, is voluntarily get onto the floor so that you always remember how to get up from the floor. And then the other one is being able to get up from the toilet, which I think is by far the most beneficial reason why you want to squat every day. You never want to lose that ability. Okay, so now let's debunk some myths as to why some of you might be having pain, or why some of you might avoid squatting altogether. One myth is that you have to have this perfect position. You'll hear some of like the younger folks that are elite athletes or fitness trainers talk about like a perfect hip hinge, or not to allow your knees to go over your toes. Listen, as long as I can squat into my 70s and 80s, I'm good, right? So yes, there are some things you want to consider based on where your pain is, and we'll get into that. But I would not really focus too much on you've got to have this perfect position. I would say if you're having pain, which we'll get into in a minute, then you want to start to assess a little bit, and you might need to modify your position. But generally speaking, bend your knees, straighten your knees, that is a squat. Myth number 2 is that it has to be some kind of a deep squat, right? Most people that I teach how to squat, we do this. And then if they can do that and they don't have pain and they're able to maintain their balance, we go lower. If they can do that, we go a little bit lower. You want to go as low as you can where you're feeling a challenge, but you can still be successful at it. The other myth that some of you might think if you see squats online is that you have to use weights. Absolutely not. Body weight is the best type of exercise to do. You do not need to use weights, right? I think you can grade the activity, in a more beneficial way of grading an activity, the squat, or make it more difficult, is just to go lower and lower. So some people refer to this as kind of like a goblet squat, where you go all the way down. I would rather teach someone how to grade an activity that way than to start weighing someone down, because it's more functional and it also works on the mobility in all of your joints and your lower extremities. So there is no perfect or black and white depth that you need to go down to do a squat. And the other myth that you might hear a lot is never knees over your toes. I kind of talked about that in the first one, but for some of you, and we'll get into what might be causing some of your pain, you might need to go knees over your toes. And actually, I do think it's functional. If you think about it, if we're doing squats for function, you want your center of mass directly over your feet. That's when you're going to be the most balanced. When you start having to think about like no knees over toes, it really becomes more of like an isolation exercise, for lack of a better term, or isolating a certain group of muscles. And I don't really think that that's like the most beneficial over the age of 65. I think like a squat where you're just working on maintaining your balance is the best, because you're going to work the most leg muscles, and again, it is functional. Okay, so now, main point of this video, let's get to some of the common areas where people complain about pain when they do a squat, and the most common is the low back. So some people avoid squats because they start to get pain in their low back. A couple reasons why you might get pain in your low back is that One is you don't have enough ankle range of motion. So what happens is your weight gets a little bit back behind your heels, and then you feel like you really need to bend over in order to stay balanced. And that can put like an additional strain on your back muscles, because now your back muscles are having to work a lot harder to hold your upper body up. So that's one reason why you might have low back pain. Along those same lines, a fear of falling backwards will also cause someone to pitch forward a little bit. So, and that will put more stress on your back and might cause some low back pain. And the other one is that your legs are just weak. Okay, so you don't feel comfortable bending your knees. So you kind of give the appearance of doing a squat by doing that motion. And we're going to get into solutions for all these, but just things to be thinking about of what might be causing your back to hurt when you attempt to do a squat. Now, some of you tell me that you have knee pain. Now let's differentiate knee pain from crunching. So just to be clear, some of you do have some arthritic changes in your joint. And just because you can hear, I know this sounds uncomfortable for me to even say, but just because you hear your bones rubbing on each other doesn't necessarily mean that has to cause pain. I've had a lot of people that have really severe arthritis in their knees, and you can hear their knees crunching, but they have no pain. So just pay attention to that. And are you associating the sound that you're hearing with discomfort? The other thing to always keep in mind, I talk about this quite a bit on this channel, is that inflammation can also cause arthritis in a joint to be painful. So not all arthritis is painful. Your diet has a huge impact on how or when or why arthritis does become painful. So just things to keep in mind, generally speaking. But then the other reason why you might have knee pain, if whether you have arthritis or not, is that you are getting your knees too far over your toes. Okay, and so that for some of you can make your knees hurt. What that basically means is just that you probably don't have like good strength in your glute muscles and the muscles more towards the back. So maybe do a lesser squat and see if you can just sit your bottom back a little bit more. And in that case, if you are having that pain in your knees, that's one scenario where I could see that you might want to think about not letting your knees travel too far over your toes. And then some of you complain about ankle pain. A lot of times that's because you've lost some range of motion in your ankles. So you can see that when you squat down, your ankle range of motion, you have to have pretty good ankle range of motion. So some of you, once you get past a certain point, you just start to have some ankle pain. So for you, you would just want to make sure that you stretch your ankles before you work on any type of a squat. Okay, so now let's just kind of go through a list of modifications that you can do depending on where your pain is at. So one squat that I love is just kind of like a wall tap, bottom tap. Okay, so that would be for any of you who you are getting pain in your knees. It will allow you to sit back a little bit more and feel comfortable without fear of falling backwards. Okay, the other person that might be get more benefit out of like kind of what I call like a sit back or like a wall squat is someone who, if you're having knee pain, you might want to kind of go more to one of these squats where you're sitting your bottom back a little bit more. And then along those same lines, the other modification is to do kind of like a gym ball squat. Okay, that'll allow you to sit back a little bit more. Again, this is perfect for any of you that either have a fear of falling backwards, or you don't have the range of motion in your ankles, or you're having knee pain. So it's another way you can modify a squat to be able to continue to do it without pain. The other modification for those of you that don't have the ankle range of motion is to just put a little wedge underneath your heels and hold on to something initially. Some of you are having pain in multiple areas because you just have a fear of falling. Your muscles are just really, really tense. So just hold on to something initially, and if that takes the pain away, no problem at all. Just hold on to something when you do them and just pay special attention that you're helping as much as you need to with your hands, but not more than you have to. Okay? And then you can do that squat that way. That way you don't really need to have as much range of motion in your ankles. So just putting something under your heels. Now, that being said, if you are doing that because you don't have the range of motion in your ankles, make sure before you do that, you're flipping that wedge around and you are stretching those ankles. You want to do that with your knees straight and with your knees bent, really getting a nice stretch out of those ankles. I also have a video where I've talked about like increasing ankle mobility. I will link that video in the description below. That's an excellent video for those of you to, if you want to learn how to kind of like mobilize some of the bones in your ankle, if you feel like your bones are kind of crunching together. So if you want to learn more about that, that video is in the description below. And then the other way that you can modify a squat is by changing your hand position. So instead of having your hands kind of down by your side, reaching them out in front of you does make you feel more balanced. And for some of you, it will take some of that pressure off of your back by just putting your arms out in front of you. And then the last tip, and probably the most utilized tip, is to hold on to a door frame or to hold on to something. And that will really allow you to kind of lean back a little bit more and most likely make that squat not as painful. But the ultimate take-home message is that you can squat at any age. And in fact, everyone should be squatting as long as possible, well into late adulthood. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you did and you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you will get notified every time I upload new videos. I enjoyed spending time with y'all today, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.